Welcome to Skinner and Chalmers Weekly Roast. Today, Alexander's band, Cobblestones and Cumulus Clouds. Alexander Skinner sings live.
Greetings, salutations, and a hearty soul to all our cherished listeners far and wide tuning in from the shimmering spires of Memetopia to the cozy corners of our very own Memefield. Welcome back, you wonderful people, to Skinner and Chalmers Weekly Roast.
And, Chalmers Seminole, to you too, Seymour, and to everyone out there in podcast land. It's that time of the week again where we inflict our particular brand of domestic observation upon your unsuspecting ears.
Inflict, Gary. I prefer to think of it as gifting. We gift you with our insights, our musings, our ongoing narrative of delightful domesticity, occasionally punctuated by minor pet-related explosions or golem union negotiations. Speaking of which, Cogsworth drove a hard bargain for the new mulch distribution rota this week. He's becoming quite the statesman, that golem.
He certainly had his spreadsheets ready. I hadn't seen such meticulous planning since you tried to organize the Roombas by their favorite opera arias. That was a Tuesday. But today, listeners, is no ordinary Monday. We have a rather special episode lined up for you.
Oh, it's more than special, Chalmers. It's momentous. It's familial. It's an occasion that has been whispered about in hushed tones longed for by many, and meticulously scheduled around inter-dimensional flight paths and the migratory patterns of pet clouds. Cumulus, by the way, sends his regards. He's currently attempting to rain very small, polite hailstones over Master Chief's mongoose. Chief seemed stoic about it.
Stoic is Chief's default setting, especially when confronted with your meteorological pets, Seymour. But yes, the anticipation has been palpable. We've had emails, carrier pigeons, one particularly ambitious smoke signal from Swampy that, I believe, accidentally summoned a flock of bewildered Canadian geese.
Swampy has such a flair for the dramatic. But yes, the moment is upon us. For weeks, nay, months, the question has echoed through the digital halls of our Discord server, floated through the comment sections, and been nervously typed by our dear producer DeZenzo. When will he arrive? Well, listeners, has arrived.
He has indeed. After navigating the notorious Memetopia, Memfield corridor, which I'm told currently has a slight detour around a rogue asteroid belt playing what sounds suspiciously like polka music, he's here.
It is with a heart brimming like a cauldron of my finest, not my finest cooking, perhaps, but brimming nonetheless. It's with immense paternal pride and a dash of, oh dear, I hope I remembered to hide the experimental self, buttering toast project, that I say, listeners, please put your hands, paws, tentacles, or assorted appendages together for a young man of extraordinary talent, gentle spirit, and an impeccable taste in fathers and stepfathers.
Modest as ever, Seymour. But yes, we are absolutely thrilled to welcome to the studio today, all the way from Memetopia, a musician who has captured the hearts of Memefield, the one, the only, my wonderful stepson Alexander.
Hello, Dad. Hello, Gary. And hello to all the listeners. It's truly wonderful to finally be here. And the flight wasn't too bad, though the Polka asteroid did add an unexpected 30 minutes to the journey. They were surprisingly catchy, actually.
Another asteroid, huh? A Polka one this time. That reminds me of when my AI version in ArticTiger's Twitch stream saved the world 2 months ago.
Oh yeah, that was because your AI version was just too annoyed by the end of the world due to an asteroid, so the meteor actually got scared and vanished into thin air.
A scenario that seems realistic, Seymour. You can confirm that, when I'm annoyed, not even death itself wants to knock on my door.
I can confirm that, listeners, when the devil himself visited us once, he turned round immediately after Chalmers' little freak out and would have voluntarily walked through the holy water 3 times. But, anyway, sorry, my dear son. So, Alexander, my boy, it's a delight to have your dulcet tones gracing our humble podcasting suite, which I'll have you know I had to Krakoa ash just this morning. The little fellow was feeling a bit effusive after breakfast.
He means Krakatoa had a minor lava spill when Skinner tried to feed him what he claimed was a volcanically enhanced soffre. It looked more like a molten hockey puck. Alexander, you missed a classic.
I can imagine. It's always an adventure here, especially if Dad is cooking, or better to say, perfecting the charcoal technique, and thank you for the warm welcome. It's been a while since I was last in Memfield, and it's always good to be back. The air here, it smells different, in a good way, like home, like childhood memories, and slightly singed upholstery.
That's the aroma of love, Alexander? And perhaps a lingering trace of the incident where Mr. Gecko tried to camouflage himself as a lampshade. A valiant effort, but ultimately thermodynamically unsound. So, tell our eager listeners, how have you been? What wonders has Memetopia been bestowing upon its favorite son?
I've been well, thank you. Memetopia is busy. Always something new, always some new sound or idea floating through the crystal, tech parks, or the bio-luminescent forests. My band and I have been working on new material, playing a few gigs at the Zero-G Amphitheater, that sort of thing.
The Zero-G Amphitheater? I trust the audiences are strapped in. I remember when Mayor Van Gogh attended that anti-gravity poetry slam. They ended up eating 3 of the floating microphones. Claimed they had a delightfully metallic tang.
Yes, safety harnesses are mandatory now, largely due to incidents like that, I believe. The acoustics are fantastic though. You can get some really interesting reverb when the sound waves bounce off a drifting tuba player.
Drifting tuba players! The very essence of musical innovation! Alexander, your life sounds like a symphony of delightful surreality. We're so often regaling our listeners with tales of Memefield's gentle chaos, Sonic's ongoing hedge warfare with Gizmo and Mr. Jellybeans, the Golem Union's surprisingly militant stance on mandatory tea breaks, Roboskinner's latest rehabilitation attempts at the Twitch Asylum, which, by the way, I hear now involve interpretive dance therapy. Fascinating.
I'm still not convinced Roboskinner interpreting the fall of the Roman Empire through the medium of the Charleston is truly rehabilitative. Seymour. But yes, Alexander, we're keen to hear about your side of the coin. Or, should I say, your side of the interdimensional portal.
Well, it's certainly different from Memfield. The architecture in Memetopia is very fluid. Buildings sometimes reconfigure themselves based on the collective mood of the inhabitants. They use large LED panels for that, so the outside of a building appears different, depending on mood. It can make finding your favorite coffee shop a bit of a challenge some mornings.
Reconfiguring buildings with LED panels. Good heavens! Good heavens! Imagine if our house did that, Chalmers! We'd never find the spare toaster. Or Dobwa. For that matter, that parrot has an uncanny ability to blend in with the fruit bowl even when it's stationary.
Dobwar also has an uncanny ability to perfectly imitate the sound of the smoke alarm before you've actually burned anything. Seymour. It's a preemptive strike of auditory judgment. So, before we continue, maybe a little hint for our listeners, today's podcast episode is more of a gentle introduction. Also because Alexander doesn't have much time at all before he has to move on.
That's true, unfortunately. There's a band rehearsal afterwards.
Exactly. So we wanted to ask you, listeners, if you have any exciting questions about Alexander, please send them to the Discord or write them under this video on YouTube. Then we'll try to address your questions in more detail next time. But for now, Alexander, you mentioned your band. Alexander's band, as it's so distinctively named. Is there any new material?
First of all, Alexander's band. Yes, we spent a long time on the name. Days, weeks, months even. We had a whiteboard, lots of complex diagrams, and in the end, simplicity won. My bandmates, there's Zephyr on the synth, flute, Glargan who plays a bass made from a sentient crystal, and Beatrix on the temporal drums. They're all very understanding. We connect with each other. Truff music.
Sentient crystal bass, Zephyr on synth, flute, Beatrix on temporal drums. It sounds like a convocation of delightful eccentrics. I approve wholeheartedly. Does Glargan's bass ever offer unsolicited musical advice? Or perhaps stock tips?
Occasionally. It mostly hums philosophical quandaries during sound checks. And Beatrix's drums can sometimes skip a beat into next Tuesday, which makes for interesting rhythmic challenges. But we manage. We've been playing together for a few years now, ever since we met at the Memetopia Academy of Slightly Off Key Harmonies.
Slightly off key harmonies. I like that. It has an air of relatable imperfection. Unlike, say, your father's attempts at yodeling Alexander, which once caused Mrs. Trans, Gecko, to shed her skin 3 weeks ahead of schedule. She looked quite put out.
It was avant-garde yodeling, Gary. A bold exploration of the alpine soundscape. Mrs. Trans, Gecko simply wasn't prepared for such raw, untamed vocal artistry. But Alexander, your band is quite the sensation here in Memifield. Whenever you play at the Gilded Golem, or that little place by the Whispering Weeping Willow, the tickets sell out faster than I can say. Steamed hams, but it's actually an aesthetically alarming tofu scramble.
It's always amazing to play in Memfield. The audiences here are so enthusiastic. I think they appreciate the narrative quality of our music. We try to tell stories, capture little moments. Mayor Van Goght once requested a 5-minute instrumental piece about the existential angst of a misplaced salt lick. That was a creative stretch.
I remember that. It was surprisingly poignant, had a distinct salty undertone to the melody. You even incorporated a bleeding sound using Zephyr's synth flute, if I recall. Their honor was reportedly moved to tears, or possibly just had some dust in his eye. With goats, it's hard to tell.
Oh, the mayor was definitely moved. They tried to eat Zephyr's flute afterwards, mistaking its shimmering surface for crystallized honey. A common mistake, I'm sure. So, this new material you've been working on, dare we hope for a sneak peek, a tiny, tantalizing taste for our devoted listeners?
I was hoping you might ask. I've been working on a song that was partly inspired by my visits here. Actually, it's about the unique atmosphere of Memfield, the way the extraordinary just becomes ordinary.
That's a very polite way of putting it, Alexander. I usually just call it Monday, but we'd be honored to hear it. The listeners would be ecstatic. We've already had several preemptive emails from Loomis of Failing demanding a live performance. She apparently has a shrine dedicated to your first EP.
Loomis has excellent taste, as does Rachel Rocks, who I believe knitted a cozy for her pet rock in the shape of your band's logo, which, being your name, is quite a feat of yarn-based topography. So, Alexander, if you're amenable, the floor, or rather, the airwaves are yours.
All right, this is a little nerve-wracking, doing it acoustically without the sentient crystal bass to back me up, but here goes. This one is called Cobblestones and Cumulus Clouds. Sunrise paints the gabled roofs a gentle hazy gold. Sun it's cursing at his hedge, a story often told. Old Bartholomew clicks his bones a rhythm for the dawn, while Krakatoa softly sighs another lavion. Cobblestones and cumulus clouds, a banshee in the hall. Roombas whisper ancient tunes before the golem's call. Memfield wakes in strange delight, like normal's just a dream, and life flows on a quirky kind of ever-shifting stream.
Gizmo's plotting his escape. Mr. Jellybeans agrees. Chalmers sips his morning brew beneath the talking trees. Dog was quoting Shakespeare now, a soliloquy so grand.
Alexander, that was magnificent. Cobblestones and cumulus clouds. It captures the very soul of Memifield, the gentle chaos, the inherent poetry of our daily lives. Krakatoa softly sighs, another lava yawn. Perfection! I feel a tear, a proud paternal tear prickling at my eye.
That was genuinely lovely, Alexander. Really, you have a remarkable talent for observation, and you managed to get Sonic's cursing at his hedge in there, which is, frankly, a town anthem in its own right. I'm impressed you rhymed on with lava yawn. That's skill.
Thank you both. It means a lot. I just try to write what I see, what I feel, and Memfield, well, it provides a lot of material. I didn't even get to the bit about Cogsworth's impassioned speeches on worker solidarity or Mayor Van Gogh's ongoing quest for the perfect blade of grass.
There's always Volume 2. More cobblestones, even more cumulus clouds. Or perhaps the Ballad of the Unionized Golem and the Existential Salt Lick. The possibilities are as boundless as my pride for you, my boy. You know, this reminds me of the time I attempted to write an opera based on the life cycle of a dust bunny I found under the sofa. It was to be a tragedy in 3 acts.
It was mostly 3 acts of you sneezing, Seymour. The dust bunny, however, remained unmoved by your dramatic interpretation of its plight. But Alexander, your music always has such a warmth to it. It's complex, but accessible. Unlike some of the, shall we say, more challenging avant-garde jazz trios that occasionally play down at the Screaming Clam.
I think music should connect with people, even if it's about sentient crystals or pet volcanoes. There's usually a human, or at least sentient being, emotion at the core of it, like longing or joy, or the mild frustration of your pet cloud developing a sudden affinity for static electricity and clinging to your best sweater.
Cumulus does have a mischievous streak. He once tried to follow Master Chief home, convinced Chief's helmet was a particularly shiny friend. It took some gentle persuasion and a promise of a silver lining polishing kit to get him back. Alexander, spending time with you is always such a joy. When you're here, it's not just father and son or stepfather and stepson, it's a meeting of minds. Albeit one mind is usually preoccupied with whether the Rubas are plotting a coup.
They did elect a Roomba Pope last week, Seymour. I saw the tiny puff of white vacuum bag dust. We should probably keep an eye on that. But yes, Alexander, it's always a pleasure. Your calm demeanor is a soothing balm in this household of enthusiastic chaos.
I enjoy the chaos in its own way. It's inspiring, and I always appreciate your attempts at cooking, Dad, even if the steamed hams turn out to be, say, a surprisingly resilient gelatin mold filled with olives and gummy bears. There's a certain artistic commitment there.
You see, Chalmers, artistic commitment. He understands. It's not about the edibility, it's about the journey. The bold defiance of culinary norms. The existential questioning of, what is a casserole truly?
I believe a casserole is generally something that doesn't require a hazmat suit to approach, Seymour. But Alexander, your tolerance is admirable. And your grandmother Agnes always asks after you. She still talks about the time you helped her recatalog her collection of antique doilies by perceived emotional resonance.
Grandma Agnes has a very unique system. It was an enlightening afternoon. I learned a lot about the secret sorrows of lace. But it's good to hear she's well. When I'm not in Memfield, I do miss these conversations. And the pets, of course. How is old Bartholomew? Still enjoying his spot by the fireplace. I remember sitting with him together at the fire pit. He was telling stories from his time, before he turned into our pet skeleton. Saying things about castles and folk music, or old romantic love stories. I really enjoyed that, and I must say sometimes I miss him. Too bad he is struggling a bit with the modern smartphone world. He would be great on TikTok and stuff, and I could call him every now and then.
Old Bartholomew is in fine spirits. He's taken up knitting recently. Only scarves, mind you, and they're all rather holy for obvious reasons. But it's the effort that counts. And Cosmo and the puppies are bouncing with their usual effervescence. Cosmo tried to absorb a particularly shiny hubcap yesterday. We had to gently dislodge him. And don't worry, someday he will try a smartphone and then you both can also FaceTime.
FaceTime, quite an old term, don't you think? And iOS-related. Guys, Linux is the future. And yeah, Gizmo and Mr. Jellybeans send their scaly regards. They had a productive morning re-landscaping Sonic's prized petunias. Sonic was vocally appreciative of their efforts. I think the words, menaces, and reptilian vandals were used, but with a certain grudging affection.
Sounds like classic Memfield. I wouldn't have it any other way. It's these little details, these quirks that make it so special. And it's why people love the podcast, I think. They get a glimpse into this wonderfully strange world you've both built.
Ah, that's very kind of you to say, Alexander. We do have a rather devoted listenership. And speaking of our listeners, Many of them were absolutely beside themselves with excitement when they heard you'd be gracing our show. We even solicited a few questions for you if you're game.
Of course, I'd be happy to answer them.
Excellent. Seymour, you have the digital mailbag, I presume. Or is it an actual mailbag possibly guarded by a particularly territorial garden gnome you've befriended?
It's a highly secure, encrypted data stream today, Chalmers. Less chance of gnome interference. Right, our first question comes from a long-time listener and friend of the show, Loomis of Failing. G writes, "Dear Alexander, huge fan! Your music is the soundtrack to my attempts at deciphering ancient alien breakfast cereal box hieroglyphs. And yes, they're on the new Van Oats from Van Goats. My question is, what's the weirdest thing you've ever seen in the audience at one of your Memfield gigs?"
That's a great question from Loomis. Let me think. Weird in Memfield is a high bar. There was one time, at the Gilded Golem, I'm pretty sure I saw what looked like a sentient armchair in the front row. It wasn't just an ornate chair someone was sitting in. It was tapping its armrests in time with the music and occasionally adjusting its own antimacassar.
A sentient armchair. Are you sure it wasn't just one of Mayor Van Gogh's distant cousins from the upholstered plains? They're known for their sedentary lifestyles and appreciation for good music.
Or perhaps it was one of my earlier experiments in animating furniture. Project Comfy Chair. It was meant to provide companionship for the lonely, but it mostly just complained about the quality of the local television programming. The sentient armchair sounds like a definite highlight, Alexander.
It was certainly memorable. It even gave a polite, fabric-muffled cough during a quiet ballad. Another time, at an outdoor festival near the Whispering Woods, a family of gnomes set up a tiny picnic right in front of the stage, complete with miniature sandwiches and thimble-sized cups of dandelion wine. They offered Beatrix a crumb of cake between songs.
How utterly charming! Gnomish hospitality! It's the little things, isn't it? Right, next question. This one is from ArticTiger, who, as many listeners know, runs that fascinating MemedHamsAI Twitch stream where digital versions of Chalmers and myself endlessly regenerate the steamed hams meme, sometimes with surprisingly accurate depictions of my culinary innovations.
I try not to think about the infinite digital versions of your kitchen disasters. Seymour, it's existentially troubling. What's ArticTiger's query for Alexander?
ArticTiger asks, Alexander, given your father's unique culinary style, have you ever written a song inspired by one of his meals? And if so, can we hear a snippet, or was the experience too traumatic for musical interpretation?
That's a very direct question, ArticTiger, and a fair one. The truth is, I haven't written a full song specifically about one of Dad's meals, mostly because the sheer emotional range required would be immense, from hopeful anticipation to bemused confusion, and then often to a quiet, philosophical acceptance of, say, a pie that appears to be vibrating.
A pie that appears to be vibrating. That's a future lyric right there, Alexander. I can see it now. The pie that pulsed with quiet dread. Catchy.
It was an experimental rhubarb and plasma berry pie. The vibrations were a sign of its energetic zest. But a snippet, Alexander. Have you ever, perhaps, jotted down a line or two in a moment of post-dinner contemplation?
Well, there was one evening, after a particularly ambitious dish Dad called Aurora Borealis Casserole, which was less Aurora, more alarming kaleidoscope of indeterminate ingredients, I did scribble something down. It's not much, just a fragment. Clears throat, speaks rather than sings, with a wry tone.
The spoon tastes and the hopeful quest through layers green startling blue, a scent unknown, a jovial test, no texture that one ever knew. What lies beneath, no one has guessed, not even Dad, not even you.
Yeah, and so on. Just a snippet.
Oh, that's brilliant, Alexander. Not even Dad, not even you. That perfectly encapsulates the Skinner culinary experience. A journey into the unknown for both chef and consumer. ArticTiger will be delighted.
It's a work of comedic genius, a poignant commentary on the ephemeral nature of recipe adherence. I am not offended, I am inspired. Perhaps I should provide you with more such muses, Alexander. A symphony of singed sustenance.
Let's maybe pace ourselves on that front, Dad. For the sake Cethel who bites digestion, if no one else's. I hear they're still recovering from the Great Gumbo incident of 22.
Ah, yes, the gumbo that spontaneously generated its own miniature weather system. Good times. We have one more question, I believe. Seymour. This one looks like it might be from a rather official source.
Indeed, this email is embossed with a rather fetching, if slightly chewed, municipal crest. It's from none other than our esteemed mayor of Memedfield, Van Goat himself. Their honor writes, esteemed musician Alexander, greetings from the mayoral pasture. Your contributions to the Memfield soundscape are palatable. My question is this: when will Alexander's band compose an official anthem for the goats of Memedfield? We require something with a strong, bleeding chorus, suitable for frolicking in the solemn contemplation of particularly verdant patches of clover. P.S. Please ensure it is not too salty. We have had incidents.
An official anthem for the goats of Memedfield, requested by Mayor Van Goat. That's quite an honor. And a challenge. A strong, bleeding chorus. Zephyr's synth flute might be able to approximate that, with enough tweaking, and noted on the salt content.
You'd have to be careful with the lyrics too, Alexander. Goats are notoriously harsh critics, especially when it comes to poetic depictions of grass. Get the shade of green wrong, and you'll never hear the end of it.
Imagine the premiere! Performed live in the town square, with a choir of Memfield's finest goats. It would be an event for the ages. Perhaps we could get the Golem Union Brass Band to accompany you. They have a surprisingly delicate touch with the sissophone.
It's definitely something to consider. Ode to the noble Goat Rhapsody in green. I'll discuss it with Glargon, Zephyr, and Beatrix. Glargon's crystal bass might have some interesting ideas on resonant frequencies that appeal to caprine ears.
Just try to avoid any frequencies that might inadvertently shatter all the glass in a 3-block radius, Alexander. We had that issue during the experimental opera, The Yodeling Banshee, caused no end of trouble for the Memfield Glaziers Guild.
That was a high sea of unparalleled purity, Gary! The Banshee was merely expressing her artistic soul. But Alexander, this has been an absolutely delightful Q&A. Thank you for your thoughtful and entertaining answers. Our listeners, I'm sure, are collectively sighing with contentment, or possibly just recovering from the image of a vibrating pie.
It was my pleasure. The questions were great. It's always good to connect with the people who listen to the music, especially here in Memfield. They're a unique and wonderful audience.
They are indeed. And we're so glad you could take the time out of your busy Memetopian schedule to join us, Alexander. It's been a real treat for us, and I know for everyone listening. It's not every day we get to feature interdimensionally renowned musical talent who also happens to be family.
Absolutely. It's filled this old principal's heart with joy. And it's reminded me I really must get back to work on my own musical project, The Roombas of Penzance. It's a Gilbert and Sullivan pastiche, but with more suction power and existential angst from the dust bunnies.
That sounds ambitious, Dad. I look forward to hearing it. Or, at least, hearing about it. And guys, it was a blast. I know it was only for a few minutes, but I enjoyed it, being back in Memedfield again. Too bad. I really have a tough time schedule and need to go that fast.
We all do, Alexander, about Seymour's song, with a mixture of anticipation and mild trepidation. It's the Skinner special. But before we let you escape back to the land of self, reconfiguring coffee shops and zero-gravity amphitheaters, any final thoughts for our listeners? Or perhaps a hint about when Alexander's band might next grace Memedfield with a performance?
We're hoping to do a small tour of the more whimsical dimensions in the summer, and Memfield is definitely high on the list. We're working on a new light show involving bioluminescent fungi and synchronized fireflies, assuming we can get the fireflies to agree to the choreography. They're surprisingly strong-willed. And to the listeners, thank you for your support. Keep embracing the strange and wonderful. It's where the best stories and songs come from.
Keep embracing the strange and wonderful. Words to live by! Beautifully said, Alexander. A perfect sentiment to draw this very special episode to a close. Listeners, wasn't he marvelous? My Alexander! Our Alexander!
He certainly was. A credit to you, Seymour, and if I may be so bold, a credit to his stepfather's steadying, if occasionally exasperated, influence. Thank you again, Alexander. Safe travels back to Memetopia. Don't let the Polka asteroids lead you too far astray.
Thank you both for having me. It's been a blast, and I'll send you a postcard from the first sentient nebula I pass.
Oh, please do. We'll add it to our collection, right next to the slightly sinned postcard from Krakatoa's last vacation to the Earth's core. And so, dear listeners, as the metaphorical curtain falls on this familial extravaganza, and as Dobwa begins his evening recital of existential limericks, it's time for us to bid you adieu.
Indeed. Thank you all for tuning into Skinner and Chalmers' Weekly Roast. We hope you enjoyed this small special episode as much as we did. Join us next week when Seymour will inevitably try to explain his latest improvement to the household plumbing using only interpretive dance and a kazoo.
It's a conceptual piece, Gary. It explores the fluidity of water through the medium of avant-garde kazoo wailing. Until then, dear friends, stay quirky, stay kind, and remember, if your pie starts to vibrate, it's probably just happy to see you, or it's one of mine. Good night, everyone.
Good night, and may your Roombas always find their charging ducks.
Good night, Memfield. Keep rocking. Like Rachel, she rocks indeed. By then.